Good morning, everyone. I trust that you are well. We are learning and dedicating our learning today in memory of Sarah Golda Bas Yeshua Cohen Sachs, Gordel Ben Baruch Godfrey, Esther Bas Moshe Milner, Nechama Bas Yitzchak Davis, Hannah Bas Mordechai Stern, Israel Ben Moshe Solomons. Let me just see if we can find the other list. As well as Leah Bas Faibo, Rav Yaakov Tzvi Ben David, Aryeh Tzivia Bas Mordechai, Avram Ben David, Slavin Shlomo Ben Yisrael Morris, Tzibur Fegel Bas Reuven Baruch, Shalom Ben Eli, Beina Bas Faibo, from Shoshana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kayla Bela Bas Henoch, Yirmiyahu Yechiva Ben Echava Moshe Eliezer, and Sarah Malka Bas Binyamin. Wish each and every one of their respective families long life and no simchas. So today we decided to move on to the next of the 10 paths to God, which is the syllabus that Rabbi Sachs Zichrono Livracha left us. Last time we met, we discussed about a Jewish identity, and now we are going to move on to discuss about prayer. Prayer is something which is of paramount importance in every faith, right? So we find that, in fact, from the time immemorial, from the time of creation, that prayer was seen as an integral, essential part of creation. What do I mean? Consider the following. When God created the world, he created everything. Everything was in place. There was the stars, the moon, the sun, the earth, the water. Everything was here. But God did not yet bring rain. And the reason why he didn't, said our sages, was because he waited until Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, were created, and he wanted mankind, humankind, to pray for rain, and then he would bring it. In other words, rain comes to bring sustenance to the ground for the benefit of humankind. Therefore, for us to appreciate what we have, we need to have a lack of something, and then we can express our gratitude, our appreciation. So therefore, it is, in a sense, an aspect of creation. Prayer is an essential ingredient, an integral part of our lives. And I think that everyone, at some point, in some way, does pray. You see it sometimes after a footballer scores, that he'll cross himself, or he'll look up to the heavens, or you see it, for example, when a person's frustrated and they're sitting talking to themselves in a car, waiting for a parking space. There's a well-known story, you're all familiar with it, but we'll say it in any case, regarding and relating to the woman who's sitting in the car, and she prays and prays. There's no parking spaces at Brent Cross, and she's waiting and praying, please God, just give me this one space, that's all I need. She's praying and praying, and all of a sudden, after her prayer's finished, one of the cars that's in front of her pulls out, and she's able to drive into the space. She looks up to heaven, she says, thanks God, but on this occasion, I managed to get one by myself. It's an amusing anecdote, but it's very, very true. We see too often, more often than not, prayer as a last resort, not a first resort, whereas in reality, for prayer, it should be the first thing that we turn to. We turn to God every day. We thank God for restoring life. In other words, from the outset of the day, we are given the correct perspective with which to be able to deal with all the challenges and ordeals and tests that we find in life. And that is, recognize the blessing in life itself. That is the first prayer, and that is the first purpose of prayer, to be able to thank God and recognize our debt of gratitude to him for life itself. Okay, so let's go on a bit. There's a medrash which says as follows. Medrash, rabbinic exegesis, I'm using today because there was an issue on Rabbi Sachs' website. I think the issue was with me, and rather than, when you have to do, just as an anecdote, they're not sure whether you're a robot or not. So what do on these websites? They say that you have to tick the boxes where there is a traffic light, or you have to tick the boxes where you see the cars, right? Well, I've got to tell you, I spent like 10 minutes and I got more and more frustrated. I ticked all the boxes, and then you got like a little line coming down from the traffic light, and you say, is that what they mean by a traffic light, or is that just a metal pole? But the traffic light wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the pole, and the pole, the traffic light's resting on the pole. Anyways, I'm going to tell you, I drove myself meshiga before I came on this morning. Very frustrating. Didn't manage to get in. It thinks I'm a robot, but we can discuss that another time. Anyways, back to this. So the Medrash Rabbah says, "V'eschanan el Hashem." So I'm using this book instead today. Highly recommend it. Sorry, I'm trying to praying with fire. It basically is 5 minutes lesson a day, and we actually did this in another session. But it is absolutely brilliant. Very simple, very down to earth, very pragmatic. Tells you an insight every single day as to the way to grow in one's ability to appreciate prayer and to add a potency to one's prayer. An interesting anecdote as well. Sorry, we're full of anecdotes today. There was a doctor. You know, the question has arisen as to whether is our places of worship an essential. You know, things that are essential are allowed to stay open in the current climate. If you're not essential, then you can't stay open. So there was a very high-ranking doctor that went to another synagogue yesterday, and the rabbi went over to him and said, "I didn't expect to see you here. You know, I thought you would, you know, need a day off after, you know, being under pressure, working such long shifts." And the doctor said, listen to this, that this is the one place which is a sanctuary in time. It's the ability for me to be able to go away from the world and to be able to just contemplate and to be able to think and to be able to speak to God. This is the one place of sanctuary that I have. Fascinating, isn't it? So the Medrash says as follows. Back to the Medrash, I digress. I exalted God at the time, right? But at that time, that's what it means. Lamor saying. So the Medrash says the word lamor saying means to the generations, meaning that God was exalting future generations that at times of difficulty, at times of need, we should and we must pray. That is the response. King David said it, Vani tefilasi, I am my prayer. It is a mitzvah, the Rambam says from the Torah, to cry out to God for help whenever trouble and persecution strike the community. And I saw a very interesting idea, and therefore obviously prayer, this pathway that we are introducing today and we're going to learn more about, is so relevant to each and every one of us. And everyone, just to bring it down to real, you know, basic fundamentals, everyone is capable of prayer. You know, when it comes to learning, a person can say to themselves, I'm not intellectual, I find it very difficult, intellectual gymnastics, and I was never academic. Firstly, I would challenge that, because I think there are ways and means for everyone in the current generation to be able to learn in their own way. But putting that to one to the side, the same with a siddur. You open up a siddur, you can open up and pray in English. There are explanations, there are beautiful, beautiful renditions of the siddur. And to take one prayer and to say it with meaning, with conviction, I think is something that we will, of course, be a heartfelt prayer will be heard by God. But we know the idea of prayer is that it changes and transforms us, right? The idea of prayer, and that's what the word means, it's in the Hifil, the idea is that it changes, hispalel, it changes us, not necessarily God. In other words, the idea of prayer is that we recognize how we submit ourselves to God, recognizing how dependent we are on Him, how unworthy we are, how in need we are of everything from Him, and we recognize our mistakes of the past and we ask for forgiveness and we express our gratitude. And in this way, we become transformed and changed as a consequence of that prayer. Therefore, when God looks at us now, we're not the same person as we were before the prayer. And therefore, God's mercy can be shown and showered upon us. Because obviously, that is the question. This idea answers the fundamental question as to why bother to pray. God knows what we are capable of. He knows all our needs. And the answer is that prayer changes us, and as a result of changing us, as it were, therefore it is capable for us to change God's judgment, as it were, on us. So therefore, there is no such thing as a prayer that is in vain. Every prayer has the capability of having a profound impact and influence on our relationship in this world and with God. So there is an interesting idea also. Sorry, just one more idea. And that is, I saw yesterday that when Moshe stood praying to God, the Jewish people found themselves with their backs to the wall. The sea was in front of them. There was nowhere to run, right? The Egyptians were heading towards them, right? And what did they do? Moshe went and prayed. And what was God's response when Moshe prayed? Moshe cried out to God, the verse tells us. Moshe, and God's response was, "Why are you crying out to me?" And literally the words are, and obviously the question is, well, isn't that what we're meant to do as Jews? I've just convinced you for the last 15 minutes that we are meant to pray. And the answer is that God was telling Moshe not that we shouldn't pray, but it's the perspective that we should have when we pray. Lama titzak alai, the words are. Why are you crying alai? It's on me. In other words, yes, we should have a heartfelt prayer, but recognize that, as it were, when we pray, we're putting it on God. We are, as it were, handing over the reins of power and control to God and saying, we submit ourselves. We recognize how dependent we are on you. And therefore, the worries we don't need anymore, because now we recognize that we've done everything that we can. Of course, we have to do everything that we can in the physical world, and we pray, and then we leave it up to God to decide how we will be able to proceed. That's what God was telling Moshe at the time of the splitting of the sea, a time when we were completely helpless. You've prayed, you've done everything that you possibly can. Now, just move forwards. I'll take care of the rest. And I think we all have worries on our minds, and the anxiety can build up, and we all feel it, especially in the current climate. But the message of prayer is that a heartfelt prayer never is wasted. And therefore, each and every one of us should just open our mouths and in English pray to God. I do it all the time. Beyond the formulaic services that we have 3 times a day, I can just talk to God. And having talked to God, I just feel that the burden is lightened. I feel that it's now, I've done what I can, and now it's over to Him. And if He sustains each and every one of creations for the last thousands of years, then He will be able to listen to us and to do what's best for us. So I would say in the current climate, certainly prayers, a heartfelt prayer, even in English, never goes amiss. Okay? So let us pause there. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have the curriculum back from the Rabbi Sachs website. In the meantime, we say Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon Elamim Zachoes Nishmais. Sarah Gauda Bas Yeshua Cohen Sachs, God Ben Baruch Godfrey, Esther Bas Moshe Milner, Nechama Bas Yitzchak Davis, Hannah Bas Mordechai Stern, Yisrael Ben Moshe Solomons, Yelea Bas Faiva, Rav Yaakov Tzvi, Ben David Aryeh Sachs, Sivia Bas Mordechai, Avram Ben David Slavin, Shalom Ben Yisrael Morris, Zipara Fegel Bas Ruven, Shalom Ben Eli, Ben Bas Faiva, from Moshe Shana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kayla Bela Ben Henach Bas Henach, Yom Yahuchio Ben Moshe Eliezer, Saram Malka Bas Ben Yomin Shal Chuli Lamam, Vegan Aiden Temenucha Sam Lachim Balarachamim, Yasti Rain Besezagana Volamim, Yisrael Sakais Nishwasamanai Nachlasam, Ver Nucha Bishlamish Venomar Amen. Good morning, Eitan, Peter, Rachel, Carol, Caroline, David, Michael, Estelle, and Adam. Good morning to all you all. When we're now going to make a Refuah Shlema prayer, we're going to have in mind Jeffrey Grossman, such a pillar in our community for the last 50 years or something like that, more probably. Very, very seriously ill in hospital. and he really needs a refuah shalema amongst everyone else. So we'll have him in mind, as well as the thousands which have COVID, praying for their recovery. Misha Berach, Avaseinu Abraham Yisrael Yaakov, Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarech Rabbeis HaCholim, Ba'avo Shanu Mispalim Ba'avoram, B'ezchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachim Aleichem Lachem Olafosam, Ishlach Nimfu Shlim and Shemaim Lachol Levim B'soch Shachol Yisrael, Rufu Es HaNefesh V'Sogov Hashabas Ma'akarev and Amar. Amen. That's it for us for today, everyone. We wish everyone well. The shul is continuing to stay open for the foreseeable future. Of course, watch out for updates. If anything does change, we are monitoring the situation very closely in consultation with the science and medical officers of the government. That's what the US is doing, and we will keep you informed. In the meantime, our online content will be delivered day in, day out. Wishing everyone well. Take care. Look after yourselves. All the best.